Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome. Take a seat next to the press. Come on. Don't be shy. Good. Hey, how did you find us here? Oh, Sure. I see, okay. Freak 9 must have left that latch open again. Anyway, I can't believe you waded through all that sewage water. Oh, yeah. Don't be alarmed. That's one of our Blethyn freaks. Yeah. He's toiling away at the press of the Picayune deadlines. You know how it is. Just refrain from... Yeah, there you go. Until you've bonded with a freak, it's best to be submissive. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm really glad you found us because I have some bad news. I made a mistake that will likely impact your ability to enjoy the content. You know, like Icarus, I flew too close to the sun by writing my own custom recording software, and unlike, the hapless Greek who fell to earth with melted wings, the extent of the damage of my pride means that, regrettably, I'm still here to tell you about it. To pay for my technological hubris, you will hear an echo or doubling effect on the vocals intermittently throughout the episode. Of course, I apologize to you first, the listener, but I also profusely apologize to our guests in this episode for the mistake. I hope that you will listen despite the flaws in our primitive recording because, I think there is beauty in the raw Is it just me down here? What do you mean? Oh, I see. Yeah, just me. Just Colin, the devil's reject and his band of Blethyn freaks, slaving away at keyboards and printing presses and computer screens, eating dead rats, drinking homemade Mountain Dew. But I guess that... What? Greg? I don't fucking know. Did you check a lake? No, Hey, look, I'm not my co-host keeper. Come on. No, I don't know where Detective Pikachu is. Did you check with Platt's precinct? Well, then, hey, it's been great having you here, but we've got some work we need to finish. Those deadlines, remember? So if you could just climb back through that pipe. Yeah, right, past the large spider, the one that keeps talking about his deadlights or something. I don't know. Anyway, look, I just work here, but thanks again. Enjoy the episode.
And now our offering, our olive branch to Boomer Seattle. There have been some
canceling,
some scuffles online between people on the show and Boomer Seattle, and this is just our offering of peace and harmony and love.
Frozen moment by a lake. A knife has been stolen. The death of the snake. I know the impossible sea when the dogs bark. I am a death bird, naughty night bird.
Naughty? Oh, fuck. Naughty night bird.
Should be a motto of the show. Cold electric music, damage me. Rend my mind with your dark slumber. Cold temple of steel, cold minds alive. On the strangled shore. Veterans of foreign wars, we are the soldiers of rock and roll wars.
Oh God, that's way more pretentious than I ever had any inkling. I was ready to make peace. Now I'm convinced we should find and execute all boomers.
Yep. These are by the way, these selections are from the Lost Writings of Jim Morrison,
American
Wilderness,
Poet. Volume 1.
And it says national bestseller on it, so good.
Yeah. Cool. It doesn't say what nation.
Fan of spectral cultural appropriation.
Yep. I will point out the blurb on the back is from Jim Morrison, which seems like
Hell yeah.
How do you get a blurb on a book after you're dead?
It's his
it was like
lost writing.
I thought I lost these writings, but I guess they're found.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy them. Lizard King out.
Cool. So, Dad, if you're listening, thank you for introducing me to this great American poet.
Well, welcome back to Seattle Sucks, a podcast about hating the city we love. The whole normal crew's here. It's me, Colin. I'm here with co-captains Greg and Brian, and we have two special guests.
So many guests that it's overheating Colin's computer.
Yeah, you're right. You can actually hear the fan. I was hoping you can hear it.
All microphones
You
are
can.
in use.
Yeah. We're here with Brynn Roth and
Ben Udashen.
Friends of the show.
Friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've both been on the show.
Appearances,
Return guests.
Friends.
I have a
in
microphone
life
this
as
time.
well, not just
It's
on the show.
it's more work.
Old friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The boat's hot. The boat's hot.
boat's
No
hot.
doubt in here.
Yeah.
It's even hotter, yeah.
Colin, we've said this before, but Colin and I met Ben when he became our roommate years ago in the U District.
Yeah,
on
from a
7th
Craigslist,
Avenue,
yeah.
From fucking Craigslist.
From a fucking Craigslist thing.
And,
It's really a shame we didn't
what-
disappear him,
what's-
but
Yeah.
we liked him too much.
What's funny about that is like
I'm sure you could have. That place was weird.
we let him move in.
He invited us to Midsummer. So
Yeah.
No, yeah, pretty much. But the thing was, he was the least creepy. So yeah, and
Low
then
bar.
Brynn and Brian, we've probably also mentioned, met at the bar they now live next to.
True love story. Yep. I'll say. And we also met Ben at a Jacobin
It's
study
true,
group.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
about
We're both.
childcare
Yeah.
in the United States.
Yeah, about
True.
childcare. I think it might have been the last one at least the last one we went to.
Yeah,
I think it might have been
so.
one of the last ones I went to.
Most
too.
of the, also, just like to to give you all at home something to identify with. Most of us are drinking
White Claw.
hard seltzers.
yeah, it's the new thing.
if you
White Claw.
were in America over the last week, what is the last week for us now?
It was White
You-
Claw's coming out party.
You had
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
not just White Claw.
It was.
Everyone at my we took the boat over to Poulsbo. Then we were on Lake Union 4th of July. There were lots of people on my boat. 100% of everyone who came and on the other boats that came along was like, "I'll do something different."
Yeah.
I've seen the billboards for this
Yeah, so
hard
it's different.
seltzer stuff. And I had every flavor of every brand available. As did, I'm guessing, everyone in America. That's
Oh yeah.
and we're still drinking it now.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's delicious.
Good.
Yeah.
Although
Zima
White
is
Claw,
back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, Zima's fantastic, but
Yeah.
it's a little sweeter. It's definitely got more sugar
Oh,
than
yeah.
the White Claw. But I found that White Claw has less of the malt liquor taste
Yeah.
than some do.
It does say it's the purest something, right?
Yeah,
to
actually, a friend of mine who owns a micro beer bar, he was telling me that their distributor, saying it's Mike's Hard Lemonade actually came up with this. Is
Of course, it's just
Company.
another rebrand.
Yeah.
This is what they do. It's like there's a company that like our whole generation will be like, "Oh, that's so bad," and then they rebrand it. Like
Yeah.
bubbly sparkling water. It's just Pepsi. It's
Yeah.
the Pepsi
Yep.
Corporation.
Yep.
Well, that Starbucks, what is that fake Starbucks they put up on the Capitol Hill? It was like called like
Yeah.
23rd Street Cafe
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
That shit rolled though.
Who originally invented the process of brewing high gravity swill beer, what we call malt liquor in America, and
Old English?
taking the color and the flavor
The
out of it?
Scots
Like,
Irish.
Albert Einstein.
probably somebody, yeah.
Fucking Appalachian. That's my
the
people.
Albert Einstein of the Scots Irish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who, of course, lived in Appalachia. I think it all comes together.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So this has been our first commercial.
Yes.
And-
White Claw.
I still
if you
haven't
would
had it.
like
I do
to
not endorse
sponsor
I don't
this.
endorse it either.
Yeah.
Well, as our resident teetotaling psychopath, no one asked you, Colin.
But the two of us are
Yeah.
childcare workers. That's how
we're-
I describe myself. How do you
now-
describe yourself?
Well,
Your labor. What is your labor?
as well, if it was Seattle, I would be a domestic worker.
Yeah.
To others, I'd be a nanny.
Yeah.
And others a childcare provider.
Yeah.
I just say nanny.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've worked in early childhood education for many, 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 many years.
No,
I started when I was 16 as an after-school assistant, and so it just happened to be something I was really good at and I really liked, and I stuck with it for a handful of years. But I am now back to nannying, which
Full
there
circle.
are many, many reasons why.
Oh yeah. We can talk about that for
Yeah.
sure. But I was a preschool teacher for about 3 years, and then I switched to nannying about a year and a half ago, and it's great. But
Yeah.
there are obviously some, material economic reasons why I did, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
I get paid more, right?
Oh, yes.
And that, I think, really affects how I view those jobs, honestly,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Oh yeah.
duh, it's really expensive. I don't know if you guys who have listened to the show, have you guys ever talk about how expensive it is here?
Oh,
it
Tell me
might
more, Ben.
come
Tell
up-
me more.
I don't know.
Tell me
if
more
that's
about
the thing.
this.
Might have come up once in a while.
Is
and Colin is
that a
constantly
concept?
bitching about how expensive it is to have a kid.
That's true.
I
though.
do that all
it
the
is
time.
expensive.
And are we nannies adding to that expense? Are we
Well,
part of that? Or
Yeah,
how
but
does
there's
this work?
no it's many, 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 many things that are contributing to this, and as of right now, they're early childhood education educators and centers. They have high turnover right now, and it's due to this fucking clusterfuck of state, and there have been so many different agencies that you can be accredited through, which all have different standards that you have to abide by,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
impossible because you can't. One might contradict the other, and then there's the added work on top of it because now children are commodities, and it's an advertisement, or they're products.
Yeah.
And right now, what's being done is, oh, do you want you need to have your kid preschool or kindergarten ready. They should be doing this, and this by this time. And it should be all documented. And so there's, for example, a company called Teaching Strategies Gold. And they're selling
hell
to
yeah.
different early...
Oh my god, hell yeah.
Yeah, they're selling to
A lot of fans
different
on the boat.
early childhood centers, and it's supposed to be children's portfolios, and it's supposed to track their
Oh God!
development.
What?
But so the thought is that you should have pieces of documentation with a description of what that child's doing, what they're learning, and how they're developing that way, with a picture that gives that example. Well, you've got 14. Say you have 14 kids in your classroom. You're supposed to have. I'm trying to think. There's per year, I believe, it's 75 pieces of documentation for each child.
Oh yeah.
And this is all, you're supposed to do this within the time that you're at work. You have 1 hour of planning, maybe a week, maybe a day. That's depending on what your staffing
It's
looks
like, what's documentation? Is this like a finger painting with a star sticker on it?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not a
No.
series of photos of the children that you put up on the internet because they won't let me down by the rec center or anything.
Yeah.
Stop it. That's bad.
Well, maybe let's
Your Tumblr account, that's why they had to show that stuff there.
well, maybe let's pull back just a hair before we get into the real nitty gritty of preschool, and start with. So you're saying that all these people are sending their kids to preschool, and there's this whole idea of the kids have to be kindergarten ready, and there's the fight to get into a right preschool.
Yeah.
Where does this mania come from? Because when I was a kid, my parents worked, but I didn't go to
in
preschool.
Texas.
In
Yeah.
Texas, yeah, but they.
I went to preschool in
It's
Texas. I was a Guppies kids for sure. Yeah, totally.
Well, I didn't go to preschool. I felt like kids were just kind of left to lay
Well,
around.
I actually think the difference between our experience is probably partially that, and even I maybe didn't even go to a school like the schools that we worked.
Right. Yeah.
But I think part of this like rise of it is just sort of this like statistics sort of techno. I don't want to blame it on technology because it's not. It's really just sort of like a change in the economic, like sort of the more corporatized approach towards human resources and just human development.
Management thing.
It's
totally.
basically
Managerial
neoliberalism.
And it's no longer about
I didn't want to say the
social
neoliberal
emotional
term,
skills.
that's
right.
Or
We're on a
it's all
podcast,
about
Ben.
academics,
Relax.
and it's I think it's a scare tactic. I think parents are really scared because one, with what's going on in the world right now, I mean, like for us economically, they want their children to be the best as well, and it's a competition amongst parents.
Absolutely.
If you're not the best, you're fucking dog shit.
Oh, absolutely.
Because as we become more stratified, like economically, being the best just means like having like a dignified human life.
Yeah, well, we accept too that this is a zero-sum game, right? So there's only a few like lives and jobs with dignity, and you're going to have to like fight and scrape to get them. And for some reason, we believe that those will be handed out via whether you went to the best school or something, as opposed to like whether you're born in the right family.
Which also helps you get into the right school.
Yeah.
Right.
So
What preschool will people like 20 years from now be dropping like obnoxious people drop Harvard? I'm sure you all know people who went to Harvard and like can't help telling you.
I'm sure there are several in the
But
city
those
now.
people that went to Harvard, they didn't go to preschool. Yeah. They had nannies.
Ding, ding, ding. And that's what we are.
Yep.
That's why we get paid more, right? Well, and this actually goes to another reason why people send their kids to preschools, daycares, nannies, after-school programs, which, you can't avoid, especially for working-class families, is the fact that they have to do this because they have to work.
Right.
Yeah, because we don't have sort of certain supports or even just sort of like kinds of jobs that are more conducive to that.
So today I was perusing the WAC again, and there is a new piece of legislation that's coming into effect. And so most childcare centers, they're when they take an infant, they have to be, I think it's 8 or maybe 12 weeks old. But
That's
now,
still very early.
But now they can take it from just born now, and that's coming in. Which
uterine,
and it's like
uterine admission.
Well, and it's under the guise of like, oh, well, that's great, like
freedom for the
helping,
kids.
Parents, they don't feel like they have to take that time off. Well, but the thing is. No, they don't have that time.
Wants to take that time.
They don't have to.
They
don't have that time. I mean, people are saving vacation days to be able to, women who are recovering from C-sections and vaginal births. I mean, they are going back within a few days or a week after giving birth, and their bodies aren't healed yet. I mean, they just one taking care of themselves, and two you have a new fucking child
that you might want to see.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think the same psychotic drive that makes you think that if my kid doesn't get in the proper preschool when they're 2 or when they're 12 weeks old or whatever, that their life is fucked, is the same psychotic idea that if I take 2 weeks off of work or a month off of work for, to take care of my kid, even if I have the vacation days, I'm going to be punished for it, or I'm going to be passed over or whatever.
I've seen so many times parents that, one, last year, I think, at least particular companies and bigger companies have passed the paternity time or time off. But what I'm seeing is parents are taking turns splitting that time, and they're actually not having the time. They're working from home.
Right.
Using vacation time, but working from home.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's hard.
More time for your side hustle?
Maybe.
It's really ridiculous. But going back to what Brian was talking about the worry about getting your kids into preschools. I mean, if you were to look into preschools, fairly good ones, there are 3-year wait lists.
Oh, easy.
I mean, companies are telling you, if you even thinking about having a child, put your name on that wait list. oh, you're still single, but you think you want to have a child? Put your name on that wait list.
Well, it's at least heavily subsidized and cheap to put your kid in preschool, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, $2,000 a month per child.
It doesn't cost as much as a lot of people's monthly wage.
Yeah.
It's almost exactly. It was funny, for a period of a time, I made the exact amount monthly that it would take to send one kid there. Like, almost down to the dollar.
Yeah.
Well, that must mean, since both of you guys used to be preschool teachers, that must mean that you guys are very well compensated.
Oh,
absolutely.
Right?
Not.
Yeah.
No. So the problem is,
I made less than what is the current minimum wage now when I started.
Yeah.
Like maybe 5 years ago.
But this was like a shitty preschool that actually made kids stupider, right?
Well, I don't think. I had maybe some stylistic differences with people, but we scored well on tests. So again, that's all that matters, though, right?
Oh yeah,
right.
So,
were you in early achiever school?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so
the fuck
okay.
does that mean?
Exactly. It's one of
the state
these.
crap.
Like, you learn to poop in a toilet
So
early?
I was telling you about like the different agencies that you can get accredited through, and then each one had different standards that you had to abide by, right? So now most of these agencies have been absorbed into one. So you have Child Care Aware, which they are the creators of Early Achievers, and that is the most popular one right now. And then you've got like DEL that is absorbed into that, and then now the new
DEL still owes me a few $100 for like some training that they're supposed to pay me back for, you know.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, so that
it sounds like a reputable outfit.
Right. So now the idea is, the problem was they are wanting a more cohesive set of standards. They finally realized that, this is not possible. This is absolutely ridiculous and not possible. So they've absorbed.
So they're going to move the goalposts for all the dumb kids.
They're trying to have a alignment of standards so that you can actually follow them. But the thing is, the people that are writing these standards and this legislation, they have either never worked in a classroom or it's been years and years and years.
Yeah.
So right now, currently, the director of, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. It's like, hold on. It's the new freaking agency for Washington State.
All my membership stuff lapsed, so.
Yeah.
I don't get the emails anymore.
I tried to get my merit the other day, and it is Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Family Services. So those have also been absorbed in that.
All right, fans, send your harassment that way.
Yeah, right.
Well, I was perusing their teens and the director of this agency, and I was looking at her credentials, and she has degrees in administration, but not in child development. So she's worked at different places that involve child development.
Right.
But I'm not sure that she's actually studied child development or family studies.
Doesn't that fit, though, right? Because this whole approach is that administrative, managerial, I guess, corporate America style of
business school shit.
Yeah.
It's managerialism.
And what do you need with managerialism? But you need stats. And but the problem, especially with child development, because when I was using all these programs and having to fit these standards, I was watching kids who were 1 to 2. Right. How do you quantify the development when it's like they're learning how to walk? They're like,
and that's the thing, there's
throw them out the window, right? Yeah.
Right. And really, yes, it's physical development.
Like emotional development too, right?
But, that's what I was just going to get into, is social emotional development.
Not necessary.
Yeah.
Not around here.
Well, not in Seattle, right?
And so one of the things that I've come across...
That's what these tech robots are trying to do. They're trying to find a way to have humans live without emotion.
I'm from here, and I did not develop emotionally as a child. So you just watch your goddamn...
Yeah, fair enough.
So something that I've come across in my many years working in child development is, we were just talking about physical development with children that young, and I've come across a lot of parents that are worried and freaked out, like, so my kid isn't walking right now, and they're 18 months old, and I'm really
Freak out about
worried.
it.
And it's like,
End of the world.
no.
Did you ever feel that way?
So and so's kid is walking. And it's like, yeah, but development isn't. You don't develop in a linear fashion. Each person develops
exactly
when they're ready in different orders.
I watched a kid.
Colin,
like that,
what's your metrics at right now?
Yeah.
Well,
Do you get a graph?
we don't have metrics really, but we did experience that quite a bit, and
So Z's gonna grow up and be homeless.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know, but
Sure, they're like speaking 3 languages when they're 18 months,
right.
but
Or
if
they're
they're not
taking
walking,
they're taking programming classes, or what are the
coding
Oh,
classes.
coding classes?
Colin.
Coding for girls.
Oh, Colin's running a coding
Is
camp
Zara
actually for children.
Oh, really?
enrolled in your coding camp?
not yet. But we'll see. She has to pass the test.
So I think we've hit on like what is at the heart of this, right? Is that it's the sort of cult of managerialism, which requires a series of quantifiable metrics
Right.
that have to be met, which all presume that children progress in a straight line that can be measured through documentation.
and that by
Yes.
you spending time and interrupting that development in order to do the measuring, you
absolutely.
are doing the correct way of.
Yes.
Oh, so with early achievers, you remember that you need to ask a lot of questions, open-ended questions.
Oh yeah.
But then,
to 2-year-olds.
yes, but that's the thing.
Yeah, no,
they want you to
absolutely.
sit there and observe, and they want you to constantly like ask them open-ended questions about what they're doing. But the thing is,
Which is why my like,
you're
lawyer dad is
constantly
really good at that.
interrupting that child's cognitive development and learning. Like, so you're breaking that. You're not actually helping them. Like, you're interrupting them, and like it's
Hack your kid with 3 easy steps.
yeah. And I just like I used to get dinged on that for my classroom,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, I'm leaving them alone. They are engaged and they are learning on their own.
Yeah.
She's like,
I
and
think
that's
it's
why I'm
better.
on my phone over here in the corner.
Oh, stop it.
I do want to hear Colin's like experience
Sorry.
with this shit. Like you've talked about.
Colin looks like he does not want to know about his experiences.
I don't have a lot to add other than to say not being in preschool per se, we still heard a lot of that. There's a lot of anxiety from parents about all those kinds of milestones, feeling like they're already behind when they're just around 1 year old. And it is really absurd. And you'll hear, I mean, these things last your whole life. If you have conversations with parents, they'll talk to you about their own development or say, apparently I was slow to speak. And it's just kind of like, all of this stuff is sort of...
if you know, like, when you
institutionalized
spoke for the first
down.
time, you are psychotic.
Well, but that's the thing. Your parents,
Unless it was last year, that's psychotic.
your parents do, and it sounds like if we're documenting it, then they increasingly will.
Wow.
Because
Yeah,
there'll
no, for
be
real.
a dossier on your kid from the time they're born,
Is it-
practically.
Yeah, I feel like kids our age, like that was maybe the beginning of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I appreciate absolutely 100% nothing about my childhood, but I maybe should appreciate the fact that whatever my parents were on, it was not that trip.
Yeah, that
Like,
didn't happen to you.
They were more totally like, yeah, I guess
you.
you'll grow up and be a human being. Great. That'll just happen. It's actually a normal thing. How fucking disinterested
Well,
they were.
Yeah.
One of the things now, I mean, obviously, our city is a really great example, but this fear is actually more so in the upper middle class. Like, the more money that you have, more fear is there because there is that competition in the business world.
Would you
And
say it's
they
a
all-
form of
they approach it.
bourgeois anxiety?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I feel like if this was like a New York Times trend piece, we'd be extrapolating this like it was the whole fucking country and society. But really, we're talking to some degree like the economic stresses we're talking about, like are universal. But like all this bullshit has got to be contained within certain strata.
So, gosh darn it, Megan Erickson, she wrote
Class Wars.
Class Wars, and she talks about she was a director for a private preschool, right, in New York City, and she talked about. So I told you about their waiting lists. Well, a lot of places you need recommendations, letters of fucking recommendation for a fucking preschool, and she was getting letters of recommendation from Bill Clinton for these children. Like, that's what you had to do.
With the Epstein news today, it's a little uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's not
Sorry.
good.
Yeah, no,
I just
no.
dated this episode. But...
But I mean, it's obviously worse in like the 4 awful coastal cities on the West Coast and like the 4 awful coastal cities on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But even in like rural Indiana, where my brother lives, when he had his daughter, his wife had to quit her job to stay home with the kid because it was more expensive to put the kid into preschool or some sort of childcare than she was making her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then eventually, because, I don't think she wanted to just be a stay-at-home mom, what she ended up doing was getting a part-time job at a preschool so that they could get the employee discount
Of course.
plus like some pay from
Yep.
it to help
I had
subsidize
a lot of
in-
coworkers who worked
Yeah.
there for a year or
Yeah.
2, maybe.
Well,
and left.
honestly, that seems like they found something that almost makes sense, where like trying to fit into our backward fucking capitalist nightmare society, like something that actually makes sense, where she was going to participate in the communal raising of kids as a part of raising her own kids and staying with them, also raising them at home part of the time. Like, a parent was doing that. But, like, that's not something everybody can do. So most people are just, like, lost in this nightmare world.
Yeah.
You're trying to navigate the preschool bullshit. And the thing is while you have this sort of upper middle class arms race over the preschools, if you're just a regular person who has a kid, you have to fucking deal with the world that's being created, right? And also you get to be looked down upon by the rest of society
In new and exciting ways.
Yeah, just
Why?
another reason to
Yeah.
be told that you're doing something wrong because you're working class, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is like, this collection of metrics is maybe going to give us this brave new world where instead of like Gattaca, where you have like reams of like fake race science,
Yeah.
instead you have reams of like, instead of just having to tell people at parties the awkward story of what college you went to, you're going to be like going all the way back and you're going to be like, wait, when did you speak for the first time?
Oh my god.
That's not
Wait,
good.
was this the time you did abstract reasoning? You demonstrated abstract reasoning. Oh, okay. I mean, you were 18 months. That's a 16 at least.
Well, there'll be like weird prejudices too, like Montessori.
Hey man, no.
Waldorf's gonna win the Civil
I'm gonna
War.
tell you, Montessori, Waldorf, Reggio, those are expensive.
Oh my god!
Oh,
a
those
Reggio
are
girl?
expensive.
So
Not
expensive.
Grigio, my darling. Reggio.
Yeah.
So,
It's all-
hold on,
there were like a bunch of like Italian women in the early 20th century who were all like developed these new ways.
Maria Montessori developed this.
I
Yeah.
hope they were communists because a lot of the people, if you were from the early 20th century in Italy, you might
Yeah,
have
sure.
been a fascist.
Actually, Maria Montessori was really fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Montessori they kind of just let the kids do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Well,
More
not
so
necessarily,
than you
but
think,
their
but-
development is they're self-guided.
Yeah.
So you are there as like you make yourself a piece of furniture in the classroom. You don't interrupt them as they learn. They will come to you when they are ready to learn. And if they have a question, like, or they want to figure something
See,
out.
Papa, I have a
That-
question.
That sounds like something that had to be invented to convince people to fuck off away from their kids and like stop doing this bullshit.
Well,
I mean,
Like,
that's
that
what
just
kind of
sounds
what
like
we're trying to
how
do.
a kid should normally just like
Well, absolutely.
go do some
But,
shit.
so this was created for orphan and disabled children after the
Probably World War One.
World
maybe.
War One. So and then it was assimilated into like regular people.
Yeah.
Stuff. So,
No, I mean, I for a brief period of time went to some weird hippie school in like suburban Dallas, where we like walked in the forest every day. That was a
Oh, is
sort
there
of.
a King of the Hill episode about that?
There probably is.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
I can basically connect a story from my childhood to literally every episode. So
I am
like
100%.
completely. And you probably got it too, right?
Arlen is
I don't know
Arlington.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, no, totally.
No, it
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
Dallas is the closest city.
Yep.
Gives it away.
Yep, exactly. Well, and that's right. We're back in an episode of Texas Sucks. But
North Texas is all right.
Yeah, I mean, we have these sort of developmental periods in the United States, right? Where, we have these Italian child theorists who come in and say the 20s. Mm-hmm. We have the progressive era of progressive do-gooders marching into industrial districts to tut-tut the poor. Mm-hmm. And then we have the original form of child rearing in the United States, which is where you would let your kids play with the slave children. Yeah, exactly. Which creates its own weird sort of child care narratives in America.
I kind of feel like in some ways the nanny for the upper class person is going back to that original way.
Absolutely.
So just sort of obviously, different economic context.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in college, I had a roommate from Grapevine, Texas, which is one of these awful Dallas suburbs. And I remember he had this rich grandfather who was some sort of surgeon or something. And I just remember him telling the story one time about his, that he had the same mammy that his grandfather had or some shit like that. Or his dad.
How old is that woman?
And I just remember laughing.
She was just taxidermy.
It was me and this guy from Kentucky that he tells this to. That he tells the story to, and I'm just like, wait, hold on, rewind that tape, sir. Did you say you had a fucking mammy? He's like, yeah, a mammy. This is the most normal thing in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, mammy. You did not have an elderly black woman to take care of you.
How did you live while mom had the vapors? You have a mammy? What the fuck?
Where do you go when you get in your time machine to the 19th century?
Yeah. There's a lot of that shit in the South still. Honestly, though, there's a lot of that shit all over the country. I don't want to dig on the South too much.
It would just create a prejudice in childcare towards where you'll see a disproportionate amount of black women, and particularly the South of black men, because there is this kind of stigma against men in childcare.
I know it? But
in the South,
I got lots of stories about that later. But.
Oh yeah, I should only get into that. And in the South, though, there's this men are not accepted in a lot of childcare scenarios because they're considered to be predators.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
With the weird exception,
which is weird because a lot of times I kind of do think of most men as predators.
Yeah, it's not
pretty accurate. Just for different reasons.
Not without its own data, but ironically, in these areas where black men are treated awful, they are allowed into the child care arena, which is this holdover legacy of slavery.
Yeah, which is a part of that dark, deep white supremacist ideology about sort of lesser than kinds of people. But you had mentioned sort of men working in childcare, I push the kids on a stroller basically down Beacon Avenue for 2 hours a day. So I've had a lot of chances for this, and all the time I get people that see me and go, "Oh, you're such a good dad," or they honk the car. Are they all yours? Oh my god! Are they twins? They're sleeping. I don't fucking know.
What I absolutely love is they fucking.
These are my kids. I don't know.
Camera to take a picture,
and
I'm like, "Who the fuck are you? Are you
Brynn? It's for my Tumblr.
Who are you that you think you could just take a picture?
They're for
of
Jeffrey.
A child that you don't know."
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's dark. But Colin, you have the same.
I've had this same experience of just being a man and having a child. It's you're a hero. You're a hero. I can't believe you did it.
Colin raised his kids.
I know, right?
I took my daughter to lunch the other day, and this woman,
that Colin's wife.
Are you on babysitting duty?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And this woman, she gave me that rub, the rub on the shoulder, and she's like, "I just want to tell you, you did such a great job. It's so great to see you with your dad." And I'm just like,
she was probably like dirty, she was covered in ketchup or something. And they're like, "Oh my god, you're so good." You're amazing.
She was older, so I'm willing to give her more of a pass, but it is kind of well, I'm a parent too. I mean,
well, and it's one of those things that, which again, it's oh, men, we're so hard to be a man, but it's one of those things that shows through sort of with these systems of gender roles and oppression or whatever, it just creates this thing to where the wrong people are even being valorized, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And in some ways it makes them doing it's in its own way, it's a kind of patronizing, right?
Well, it's reinforcing the idea that it's not their work, right? This is a special
which is
little
the
chore
core
that
of
you
it.
did or whatever, right? Yeah. And I think that gets.
I still should get paid more.
If
we're gonna have that,
just to be clear.
Yeah.
Well, but I think that gets back to the thing we're talking about in preschool, right? When we say that, so people are paying these astronomical, never been seen before tuition rates. yet the preschool teachers are still making basically minimum wage.
All of that money is going to the directors.
Yeah, and
So the last school that I just left, we went through a transition period. Our director retired, and it took a long time to find a new director. And finally, after like a year, they found one, and she came from Chicago. She was a director of charter school.
cool.
And they paid her
Personal
3
friends with Rahm
times
Emanuel.
more than
Probably.
our last director.
Yeah.
They raised the tuition by 12% to pay her, not for us. The workload got more on us
Sure.
as teachers, but we weren't getting raises. We weren't getting annual raises either. We were getting COLA.
Right.
And
Cost of
they
living.
scraped and they looked through all of the books, and they managed to find money to give us a little bit of a raise. With the COLA and the raise, it was 3%.
Yeah, exactly.
Which that's
Yeah.
like just cost of living.
That is
mean, yeah,
That might be less than
it might be
cost of
less.
living. Yeah.
Because you're talking about, a not to name names, but a preschool attached to a very,
Very
wealthy
pres-
institution.
Well,
in
honestly,
in
in
Seattle.
my experience, from what I've heard from other childcare workers and other contexts, it's sometimes those big sort of multi, like those are even worse to their workers.
Oh, absolutely. And
it's
this
just-
is a nonprofit.
Well,
So
Well, naturally.
I tend to somehow I just fell into the well-to-do demographic. So
Sure.
I worked for a lot of. I worked for
In life.
Children's Hospital.
Mhm.
I worked for Harborview, and I worked for Hutch. And so these are
Yeah.
yeah. But
they have a ton of bargaining power, right?
Right,
to
right.
get you guys there.
And the thing, so the last place the last place I left, we had a parent board, right? They wanted this director, they voted her in, and shit's falling apart. I actually was on a play date at Youth Village with another nanny and her kiddos and my kid, and I just happened to see a parent with her kiddo that was in the classroom next door to mine, and we were chatting, and I got the lowdown. Well, and I've kept in contact with other parents and things. And what's happening right now is shit's falling apart. One, the director is extremely fucking racist.
Nice.
2,
Very cool.
yeah.
Very good.
Oh. So, when she first started, sorry, I'm going on many different thread tangents.
But it's important to understand how these all these different layers of the business work and how it affects sort of the actual care that's given to the child. It's mediated through so many different standards and groups.
This woman, like I said, she's racist. She came from Chicago. So when she first started, she wanted to get to know everybody, all the teachers, and she wanted to have a one-on-one with each teacher, half an hour. You could talk to her, ask her anything. So it's my turn, and we're chatting.
An in real life AMA.
She's like, "Well, do you have any questions for me?" I was like, "Oh, well, kind of interested. You were an educator. You worked in education in Chicago. What are your thoughts on charter schools and really the fall of the public education?"
Yeah, this
and,
is around
segregation.
This is around a lot of teacher union activity at the time.
So she sat there and she's like, "Well, I was a director for a charter school, and the kids that went there, they really wanted to learn, and the other kids that were in the other schools, they just wanted to join gangs and do drugs."
It's true.
And I about
Cool.
fucking fell out.
Oh
of
my
the
god!
chair.
Absolutely.
I was just are you fucking kidding me?
Oh my
But
God.
she is one of those fucking terrible liberals
Yeah.
that's I'm a liberal, but you're just as fucking racist and terrible as a fucking Republican.
I want to give them opportunity to help crush teachers unions.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
Well,
we
yeah,
were experiencing. I know there was many different centers that I worked at where union reps were coming. And
No, they never came to
and
ours, but I was
anybody
considering
that was
doing it.
talking
Honestly.
to the union rep, they were fired.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
any other place, but it's just really.
My place was so small; they only had two very small locations. But I could absolutely see that happening, and I could see it being a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll call them out. One of the biggest owners of prestigious schools are Hyder Nelson.
Oh yeah.
So if you're aware of that, then she's a real fucking bitch. Oh, she's a fucking horrid bitch. But I mean, these schools are terrible, but they are number one for firing anybody who's spoken to a union rep. There was one very specifically that I have a bunch of friends, and they lost their jobs when they found out secretly. They were meeting with them secretly, and they were found out and fired.
Yeah.
So we have this large female workforce.
Absolutely.
That is coded female. It is paid, essentially minimum wage to watch kids, and is virulently anti-union.
Yeah.
So essentially, what we have is just something equivalent to a Walmart style model, just to childcare. The only difference is instead of getting the discounts that Walmart gives you, you still get to pay top dollar to send your kids there, so that this parasitic managerial class can, get another house or some shit.
So to combine kind of everything that we've talked about, and not ending it, but bringing it to a point, all of that leads to the fact that early childhood educators, whether you have a degree or not, and especially in preschool, we are thought of as glorified babysitters. But there's also the expectation that we are the experts to know about these children, to help parents, but we're still treated like shit, and the work keeps getting piled on top of us, and the expectation is unrealistic. And obviously there's no pay for it.
I have a hot spy take about the whole glorified babysitter thing, which is that we are babysitters, and that's because babysitters rule.
Well, that's a good point.
All the crimes they solve.
That job has value.
If you think about it in sort of the concept, if we try to strip it of its dollar meaning, shouldn't the goal sort of be the idea is jobs where you're caring for people,
right?
And care should be a thing that should be
valued,
be valued, right? And should be, but it's not how it's set up currently. Let's say, but I almost would wear that as a badge of honor at this point.
So the other day it was kind of funny. It's
also because I make more money, ironically, babysitting than I do actually
I
working
make
at a childcare
absolutely
center.
more money. Oh my god, yeah. But on that note, I would, on the level of preach to anybody or say what we do has value and just the care.
Yeah.
But I found myself the other day actually. So I am actually really privileged. I really lucked out with a really fantastic family.
I did
and
too.
I'm not
If you're
just saying this
listening.
because I'm worried about it.
If you're listening, both these people would like to keep their jobs.
But so they're really awesome. Really, my work is child-centered. I don't need to clean their house. I don't need to, run their errands.
And do
all
you
that
need to
bullshit,
do
right?
documentation?
No,
and go through that
absolutely
stuff?
not.
Exactly.
There's trust. Obviously, they've hired me to take care of their children, so there should be trust, right? But I felt myself feeling guilty about not feeling like I'm not doing enough. Maybe they're not thinking that I'm not doing enough, and then
I feel that way too.
For a moment, it was like, wait, no. The fact that I literally care for them, that's what I'm there for, and the rest is just fucking an extra. That should be valuable. That amount of money per hour, is worth it.
Well, the managerial mindset and the obsession with metrics has instilled in us this idea that if we're not doing something that can be measured every minute, that we're wasting time. So, because I think you get that at every job. Even at my work, I'll get that where people
you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right? I'm just sitting around watching the machine, so I'm not doing anything. It's no, you just said what you're doing. You're watching the machine. You are caring for a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. That is a thing. And honestly, you're not being paid enough to do it. But there is this sort of obsession with physical activity for the sake of physical activity, right?
Yeah.
You know, just to see you scurrying, right, is what they want. But
Yeah.
but let's bring this back. So we discussed preschool a little bit. We discussed what a mess it was. But there's like a level above preschool, right? So if you have more money and you want to invest in something else, you could bring in your own personal servant. Is that not what they're called?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, actually.
No,
I mean,
you're hitting.
I've been thinking, though, and I mean, it is kind of going all the way back to, like, the fucking, Romans bringing in, like, educated Greek slaves,
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, yes,
Why are you
even
here?
though
I lost
can
a
say
war.
Yeah.
that like I'm
Whoops.
privileged to have a great family, but the fact that like they can hire someone to
exactly.
help the help, right?
Yeah, exactly.
even if they're not acting like, oh, you're the help, you're below me, like
Yeah.
there is in essence that same feeling, whether they are meaning it or not.
Mhm.
Like,
So yeah, let's start with that. Like, so if you have a little bit more money, you can bring in a nanny, right? And so, like, what's it like just working in somebody's house, right? Like, where they live,
Oh, yeah, for
you know?
sure.
yeah,
You're not in a workplace. I mean, there is some shield to being like in a workplace. Like you can be like, "Fuck this McDonald's, this shit sucks."
Oh, yeah.
Like, but when you're in somebody's house,
Yeah.
like you can like, "Fuck your home,
Well,
fuck your couch."
It is weird. Occasionally running into my boss's room where their bed isn't made.
Like, yeah. I think the weirdest thing that like I've had like hard time wrapping my head around is the fact that it's so intimate. You're in somebody's home, you're taking care of their children, you see their life.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is they don't want to know about your life, right? So like they can even care and ask you how your weekend is and be kind and respectful, but in
They're just
essence,
not as
like
in our life as we are in
well,
theirs.
exactly. But they also don't like.
Yeah.
I feel like obviously there are healthy, respectful boundaries, and like, but you're not just the help, like there to show up and leave. I mean, I guess you're.
Yeah.
It's more than that, right?
Well, there's a conflict
Like-
there, right? Because like that's what's fucked up about this whole part of our society is there's this obvious thing that everybody fucking needs, which is to raise the next fucking generation. And we've convoluted it through the marketplace, where both parents have to work, and then they have to pay for childcare, or they're at some daycare, or they're very wealthy and they get to pay to have extra help. But at the end of the day, it's something that should be happening in a much more organic way
Right.
that we've destroyed. And I mean, I would ask you, like, what is that? What is the better way? My first, stab at it would be like actual community, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the show The
Yeah.
Little Rascals.
But that was one
Honestly,
thing.
that sounds better than what the fuck they're talking
I
about.
mean, honestly, I just think that there should be like a neighborhood childcare center,
Yeah.
like for like every 50 kids there are.
Yeah.
No,
I think
with
that
a
is-
ton of little spots, or connected with the parks department or something. I don't know.
Oh,
Well, we've established
centers
on
are
this-
like, yeah.
Yeah, we've established on the show that all neighborhoods of single-family homes will be bulldozed for brutalist.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually thinking,
blocks.
you just put childcare
So, yeah.
centers in the bottom. Basically,
Yeah,
that
They used, somebody
center.
used to put a doctor's center and a childcare center in the bottom of every apartment
So
complex.
me and Greg were actually talking about how, because I live and work in Beacon Hill. If you're in Beacon Hill in the middle of the day, you probably see me. I'm always there. But seriously, always there. It's ridiculous.
All right, if you're listening to the show, go find
Yeah,
Ben.
find me. If someone finds me,
It's
then
like
that's proof you
Ursula.
guys have some power.
If you see him,
If you
go
see
ahead
a
and-
white guy with a beard, watch out.
also,
White guy
And
with
a stroller
child.
with
Yeah,
also
well, that
congratulate
helps. That
him
makes
for
it a
taking
little
care of the children.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
For doing
Yes,
his part.
please.
Hang a medal around his
Yeah.
neck.
Best Manny ever.
Yeah, exactly.
No, best man ever.
Yeah. No, but seriously though, like we just need to have a bunch of versions of that El Centro de la Raza
yeah.
like square where they have obviously all the homes should be free and the childcare should be free, and the burrito truck will also be free. I guess.
Yeah.
You won't have money.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you watch films and entertainments from the 70s and 80s, and they're always trying to save the community center and the youth center. So I feel like these things
more than ever.
Like, right?
Spoiler, everyone lost.
However any of those movies ended, in the aggregate, they all lost.
Yeah.
But it's not just like all these things, like, do they, not to like romanticize some past or something, but there is a different, even without this like centrally planned socialist utopia we're talking about with these giant brutalist towers with daycares on the bottom, like an economy that worked in some other way for regular people would be one in which people were able to have meaningful lives and careers and dignified work in the place that they were from and lived around their family and knew their neighbors in their community for a long time, and where people naturally might just organically figure out this stuff.
Yeah. Right. Like home daycare centers actually kind of are a way to do this.
Yeah.
If we could find a, like, sort of in the more short to mid term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I've even thought about it, but I don't know what you got to, first you have to own a home, but step one.
I mean, licensing is, licensing is definitely weird. And,
and that might be a problem.
I've got some, I own this boat.
And there you go.
What would the insurance be on that?
Yacht
Well, you
childcare.
could go around the lake and the boat just picking the children.
In life jackets and tie them off the side.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
drive them.
Get
They
it.
love
You
water.
pick them up in the Epstein one.
Love water.
But yeah, well, there was this Joshua Horn tells a story. He was a British surgeon of going to China, and this is a bit of rural romanticism, but he does tell the story of being in this Chinese village out in the countryside, and all the women worked in a factory that was across the river, and all the children would be taken care of by the older folks and the people who couldn't work. There's a lot of people from the war or whatever who couldn't work. And when the women would come across the river at the end of the shift, the children would run towards them because they would be waiting, screaming, "Mom, Mom!" And as Joshua Horn points out, being very English and very, freaked out by this, any woman would pick, he's like, they'd yell "Mom," and then the women would pick them up, and he's like, just any woman would pick up any kid, and they would just yell "Mom," right? And it was this community, what he's talking about was like, there was just like community investment in actually raising the kids.
That's
that
really
sort of
amazing.
break down, some of the.
Also,
like,
I'm suspicious of his analysis of that situation as well.
Was he sort of doing that, like, classic white guy thing?
Yeah.
Like,
Everyone looks the same.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that he approved of it. But honestly, I'm 100% sure he was on the side.
Well, to that point, I have a slightly different prescription for this problem. I think that if we moved more to intergenerational living in one place, then you don't actually need community. You have family, and this is sort of increasingly common now with childcare so expensive. A lot of grandparents are filling in that role, and I can say that that's definitely something that's happened in my life. But they don't live at my house, but they could.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's almost like we feel like we have to invent that, but like that's the obvious way that.
And it's returning back to a way of living that did exist and does still exist in some other places.
Well, it's a return that exactly exists in the 19th century, which that the kids who are in their 20s and 30s can't afford anything, so their parents live with them for that reason, and then they have a kid, and the parents watch the kid. But and I kind of want to get back to being the nanny in the household, maybe some of the because you have this job that's both a workplace and it's intimate, right? And it creates problems. And I mean, there was this book. It's edited by Barbara Ehrenreich or whatever, but it was about a lot about childcare workers called Cold Woman. But they talked about in it the hiring of these nannies, and one of the things they complained about was when the kids would call the nanny mom, the nanny realized they're about to be fired. Right?
Man. I got some feelings with that one.
Yeah, so they got some you're in this intimate situation where the child at 2 or 3 doesn't understand the subtleties and flows of capitalism and the worker-boss relationship, and they maybe have some emotional feelings that are put on the person who's actually doing the emotional
But that's
labor
the
with
thing.
them.
I was gonna
That creates a
say. I
situation
mean,
with
like
your employer,
that's the
right?
hard thing. Is like I genuinely love my children, and yes, it's my job. But like I genuinely love my children, and they
It's
have
kind of
because-
a requirement of the job,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
it's one of the hazards in the same way that it's like hazardous to like fly a plane.
and it's a tricky thing to maneuver
That movie.
that. Even if you have a really great relationship with your employers, and the expectation is that yes, you're caring for these children, but
Yeah.
the first time where a child says "I love you," like you have to have that conversation with the parents of what are you comfortable with.
This is
Like-
why I
like,
only take
do
care
you-
of pre-verbal
like-
children.
Right.
So
I mean-
I just tell them, you love me. You love me. I'm your dad. And I do it in Trump speech.
It seems like I mean, maybe this is obvious, but that just is highlighting the basic like stupidity of the intrusion of the market here. That like into something that should be much more basic. That these relationships are necessary to all human life and basic, and these kids obviously have like a instinctual understanding of that's extremely normal, and they don't get like that it's been perverted in some bizarre convoluted way that someone had to go on an app and find a nanny and like and to pay a wage to show up and schedule these hours, and like it doesn't make any sense, but it's because that's the weird market solution we've had to come up with for having destroyed everything natural.
Well, it's hard to explain to your child that, like, this emotional bond you've developed with this person, that actually that person's just the cheapest person I could find on Craigslist, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, in that sense that it creates maybe a tension between you and your employer. At the same time, you're in this intimate situation that creates openings for exploitation from your employer, right? Because you do like the kids. It's easy to be convinced to
Oh my gosh.
do
It's
more.
I mean, it happens even when you're working in like preschools, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's
It
why
happens
they
with
can put the
teachers, too.
load on you, like without getting paid, because they're like, well, you do this.
Don't you
because
care about
Don't
them?
you care
Yeah.
about your kids? So when I left my classroom, I felt like incredibly guilty for leaving my kids, and I was really upset. But then it was one of those aha moments too, and I was like, well, I can still love my kids, but I can't put 14 children like
Same room.
other over my own needs. But that's the expectation from the outside is no, you should be putting your needs over, or
that's the cold.
putting them over your own needs.
That's the cold market logic, right?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
you get the maximum, do you get some pleasure points from this? Do you get some emotional connection coins?
Well, then we can pay less.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I think
It's a lot of industries now.
when you briefly mentioned it, Ben, I think it is the exact thing that gets used against teachers and against nurses. So any
Nurses,
female-led industry, right? Which if they go on strike,
That
for
is true.
teachers,
Do you parallels with that of
what? Yeah. It is never the hospital's fault for underpaying staff or for gouging patients. It's never the school's fault for having Rahm Emanuel as mayor. It's never obviously the fault of the preschool for essentially dumping their budget into this managerial layer that doesn't do shit. It's always your fault. Why don't you like the kids?
Yeah, and we were doing all that work with these different managerial layers to get a star on the website.
Oh, absolutely.
To say, so
The
when
different
people are
levels for
comparing
early
shopping,
achievers.
it's basically just giving them
Level 3 or level 4.
What is our Googleism?
Well, it's really
absolutely. The amount of fucking work that you have to do within the classroom to get it up to standard, which this shit is bullshit.
Yeah.
Absolute fucking bullshit. It doesn't fucking... Sorry, I am very passionate about that one. It does not benefit the children in any way. It just makes the school look fucking better so that you can get people in the door to get money.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that's really what it is. It's really not about the kids.
Well, maybe we hit one of the central problems, right? Which is that most of us engage in the world, in our real, actual life, we engage in the world as workers, but politically and in our minds, we engage as consumers. So we see that star, whatever, and we think, That's great. Like credentialism,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Mhm.
You know,
I want to
would-
know that my childcare, the place I send my baby, has a
Mhm.
A+ little loving education babies.
and it shows the limitations of engaging in politics as a consumer as opposed to as a worker, or literally anything else, honestly. But yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
All right. Yeah. Well, going back to those, it brought my brain back to working at those childcare
Yeah.
centers, and I'm glad I don't do that anymore.
I mean,
but- did you guys
yeah.
you said, Greg, wanted to record another one?
We might get to that, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my last question on this was going to be like, is there anything? Do we know about anything on the horizon as a new model in Seattle? Is anyone talking about Seattle specifically? Like, are there any better models here that are actually happening, or that people want to make happen here?
Oh, there are no better models.
There's just
but,
lots of
right
models.
now they
Yeah.
are trying to implement and force a new model.
Yeah.
But nothing good.
But
to-
nothing good.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
really
Cool. Yeah, I mean that's par for the course.
I mean,
on the show.
no, but
Yeah.
like seriously, but like it's possible. Like we just need basically to just copy what big goofy Bill de Blasio did in New York.
yeah.
With like, it's not perfect, but like to basically just expand what public education is to kids who are 4 and kids who are 3
Right.
and kids who are 2. Like, at least have that as a baseline.
Is there any way we can do that with an app?
Probably not.
Well, we're out.
Yeah.
City's
Damn
out.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Can you put a chip in your child and
Yeah.
control it with the app?
We only endorse app-based solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
Innovation.
Innovations.
Yeah.
Yeah, not solutions.
Ooh.
Innovations.
Yes.
I'm realizing. So when I was looking at the little website for the agency, I noticed that there was another innovation team for that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I am like, my mind is blown by this innovation team. I think I need to be part of an innovation team because that seems pretty cool.
Well, it should be noted that for all the, now that Chernobyl's out or whatever, for all the complaints about Soviet bureaucracy, modern American capitalism creates a just astounding bureaucratic layer, and innovation teams are just another part of it, of these
Yeah,
just...
it's innovating new layers.
Yeah, basically, they just do nothing fucking managers
Yeah.
who you're paying for, right?
Yeah.
Well,
And,
you wouldn't need all these metrics if there wasn't a lot of superfluous layers, because those are the mediation between people who are doing something and people who are not.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how
You
the
need a
people
sort
who
of
are not
nice
doing anything stay
slope
connected
down.
to the people to the work being done.
Yeah,
So that's how
absolutely.
you know we're full of shit. Cool, man. Colin, what else do we have for today?
We have one new patron
Very cool.
who, for the second time ever, happens to also be one of our guests.
Oh, so this is easy. New rule. Everyone who comes on the show must
Yeah, that's gonna
Become a
be
patron.
that's gonna be the
become
only.
an ongoing patron.
Well,
Yikes!
I mostly decided, like, I went to the Patreon.
I'll do it.
And I wanted to see how many patrons there were.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're very
Because
excited.
I was really excited for somebody to give Brynn a new name.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting waiting to go into work, and I saw there was 29. And I was like, you know what? Let's get to that 30.
I
Let's
do
go.
not accept
All right.
this as the 30th patron. I will not accept a new name until we hit 30.
Well, actually, yeah, that is kind of funny, because does it count when it's his own money? I mean, like we have combined, like, financial stuff.
Mhm.
It's out of the same bank account.
So,
Then we might need to get 2 more patrons.
exactly. Well, Ben, do you have plugs?
Oh, yeah.
Or also, thank you
Oh,
for
yeah.
coming on. But do you have
Absolutely.
plugs?
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for coming,
Thanks,
friends.
thank you both.
Thanks. Yeah,
Ben,
and I,
talking to us about childcare.
Yeah,
we know
absolutely.
Ben has a podcast.
Yes.
It's called
Mhm.
Unpopular Front.
Yes.
It's very good.
unpopularfront.com.
Mhm.
It's all
It's
your
very
subscription
unpopular.
things.
So I'm just
No, it is very unpopular. Don't worry.
No, just a
I see
clever
the
name.
stats.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally true. I lean into it. But yeah, if you are interested in left politics, socialism, electoral politics to a degree, I try to it's sort of like a halvesies show. It's like half I sort of do like a sort of essay thing, and then I try to interview people. So I interview people like Liza Featherstone, Yasmin Nair, Ben Burgess, people like that. If you guys have heard those names,
Mm-hmm.
So
on podcasts,
check it out. Yeah, it's another socialist podcast.
Awesome.
Unpopular front.
Until the world is inundated with them, there's
Superior
not enough.
name.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
It's one of the better names.
yeah.
And also, I will say that one of the people who complained about us not having microphones, I think brought yours up and was like, microphones are easy, guys.
I think I did
Ben had
actually.
better sound quality than us for
That's true.
going way back.
But that's just from doing music stuff in my in my room. Like I already had the gear. It was a combination of being like a PC gamer and having compute and doing like music stuff. You kind of already have it.
Yeah, that
So-
explains
Do you
why
hear
there's
that,
so many
everyone?
Explains
podcasts.
like PC gaming. It's the only I don't even.
It's the only way to do it.
PC Master Race.
Yeah, I'm not even much of a gamer anymore.
Don't say that.
Sorry, I'm still a gamer.
But you're also on Twitter before we
Yes,
get to
at-
Ben Udashen.
Yeah, UDASHEN.
Yep, and I'm sure you loved Ben, but even if you didn't, you should follow him because he changes his display name all the time, and it's hilarious.
Oh, it's
I
amazing.
do
Always
those
hilarious.
games.
Yeah.
Does anyone
He's a good
get
follow.
the most recent one?
I'm not sure if I saw
Wait,
that
It's like
one
a
yet.
ridiculous David Bowie reference. But, it's the European canon is here, but fair enough.
And
Don't
so,
get the can.
And Brynn is at Gabe the Cat.
I am at Gave the Cat one.
One, yeah. That gave the cat
Yep.
one.
It took me a while to figure it out, but I did figure out that it was you. So.
also,
Context clues.
plugs. You have
Oh,
a
I
events
do.
coming up.
Oh,
So after, bawling my eyes out about 1 million times over the poor babies that are locked in cages at the border, I realized my tears were not going to help them. So I decided to organize a fundraiser. So on August 10th at the Beer Authority in North Seattle, we're going to have a bad movie night double feature. There will be a popcorn bar, a silent auction, and before the movie, we're doing a bad movie night trivia. So there will be many ways to help donate the money that are going to go to races for the poor babies' legal funds.
It's like you designed a game for Colin and I to win.
I know, right? For real.
And just to pitch the silent auction a little bit, we have like glasswork from like local artists, and council candidate Chris Bagaro will make you
interesting.
paella.
Okay.
Well, I
He'll be on
hit
it.
him up.
He will make it in front of you.
said paella.
It is
Oh, it's
delicious.
delicious.
And it is fucking
Very
good.
Yeah, I have to say, as a vegetarian, when I saw the picture, I almost fell out of my chair because it looked incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
When he makes it in front of you, he like chats you up the entire. And it is a show.
It's a
Dinner
whole show
theater.
he puts on.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, maybe he like reads a room really well, like reads his table really well.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just the way he serves up everybody, but
The plates were heaping. Like there was some real fat guy energy. Like, it was heaping. And
Is he a big boy?
Yeah.
Fat guy summer.
But he has
You're also not a big boy. Shut up.
he has the
I'm the
energy.
thinnest I've been in
Nobody
15
is.
years, so.
And he
all
and
that
look,
walking.
he
For
used
real.
to work in a kitchen. He knows how to cook. Motherfucker knows how to cook.
yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And I think that the magic number, get 5 of your friends, go bet on it, because I think 6 people will give you the fattest amount of paella.
So I have a statement, Chris. If you're listening, I live in that district, and I've tweeted a lot about one of your opponents and supporting them. So if you want me to change your vote, I'm not going to say who I'm supporting.
It's Ari.
It's Ari.
It's obviously Ari Hoffman. Fucking okay. I was thinking about this.
Solidarity.
Sorry, before we go, I hang out with Spec.
Yeah.
We're like
Fantastic.
neighborhood buddies.
Oh, okay,
His
awesome.
kids go to the same park that
Oh,
I go to.
okay,
Kids
yeah,
I go
awesome.
to. But yeah, I just was thinking how like they like had like the Secret Service sent to his house.
Oh my God, I know.
And how like this is proving Ari Hoffman is like the most scared man in Seattle.
Oh, sure.
He's the most
Absolutely.
spooked dude. And
Yeah.
I'd say bad Jewish representation.
Oh,
You know,
terrible.
it's been a while. Like I think you're assimilated. You can handle this, dude.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I will say also in the silent auction,
I'm going to
there's a
cast
chance-
Steto magic on you.
Yeah, there's a chance to harass Ari Hoffman. It's on the silent auction as well. So
Oh, wait,
please,
I didn't know about that
Beer
one. That's a
Authority
surprise
on
one.
Lake City Way on what day?
August 10th. That's a Saturday.
Wait, what
at
are you
6
raising
p.m.?
money for? Like to buy guns to raid?
No, I wish.
Racist, right?
Legal
to
fees.
racists.
Yeah, legal fees.
like-
for their legal
Oh.
funds. Yeah. So,
Lawyers and money, no guns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but like I said,
we will
there's
take a separate donation.
Yeah. Oh,
there's
no.
many
Or
ways
in
to
kind.
like donate.
Donation in
so-
kind. To send,
In kind,
to
yeah.
send with
John
the
Brown
lawyers
gun
and money.
in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Warren Zevon. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes,
Awesome.
definitely come by.
Thank you.
That
Yeah.
sounds
Also,
awesome.
Please do.
If you want to meet one of the cast members of Seattle Sucks, I'll be there. And if you don't want to meet me, I
Oh,
won't
wait,
be
no,
there.
I
So
absolutely
whatever
expect-
you believe.
you guys to come, like you know that you're gonna be there. Right?
Yeah. I'll be there.
I will do the
Yeah.
best I can.
Oh, no.
I do not control my fucking calendar.
No, he really doesn't.
Okay, I give him.
Colin gets a pass. Greg will be
But
No,
there.
he has
do
to bring his
not.
whole family.
You do not.
Yeah.
No, I'll be there. When is it?
Bring in
The
vote.
10th. Do you listen to anything anyone else says?
Yeah,
God damn it.
I know it's being
It's
recorded.
because I'm a
so
woman.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't hear
Call it
my
out.
voice.
Call it out.
Canceled.
Yeah, were you gonna
Canceled.
say something?
2/3 of Seattle Sucks is now
Yeah.
canceled.
Canceled. Do we
I'm
get to
hitting my
cancel
head
someone?
though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Greg's
Besides,
canceled.
like I need to cancel myself because I do need to leave.
All right. Well, let's wrap up.
Yeah.
All right.
So thank you
coming,
again.
guys.
Well,
Thank
thanks
you so
for
much,
having
guys.
us.
This has been great.
And thank you for
Yeah.
the work that you do because it is very important and very valuable.
Yeah.
I know I am
Thank
the best
you.
Even though
because I'm a man.
Even though you're not watching my children, I do appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And to be clear, Ben's work is 24% better than yours.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey man. By the way, I've already
Colin's
talked
the
to you
hero
about
'cause
this,
he does it
but
for free.
Since
Yeah,
all of our
exactly.
children are about the same age, we're definitely doing
gotta do
play
it.
date shit.
Gotta
Oh,
do it.
yeah.
Hell yeah! Now
I'll
that
see.
it's summer,
Yeah.
play date
And
city.
yeah, now that you're don't have the plague or whatever.
Yeah, I
it was.
know.
Seattle
TV
Sucks play
as-
date coming to a city park near you.
Yeah.
We'll let the listeners know so
Bring
they can
your
show
kids.
off.
Yeah,
I'm
that'd be
always in
rad.
the same two places.
All right.
So just go down Beacon.
If you happen to see two adult men taking care of children, which will be your key to know that it's
And if you
Seattle
get
Sucks
it-
play date, 'cause
yeah,
that never
exactly.
happens.
Yeah.
It never happens.
It's true. It's
fine.
never happened.
It's quite rare. Well, yeah. So thank you again, and I think we've started saying if you aren't aware, we have a lot of full-length episodes on our Patreon. So you should give us some money if you like the show. We know you did
Yeah.
to hear more of stuff like this.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
But those are actually better.
They're better because people pay more.
Yeah, they're right. They're better because they cost money. And one final thing, we also have a online periodical called the Seattle Sucks Picayune, run by the Bledin Freaks, a team of Bledin Freaks and their editor, Brian Pikachu Platt, Detective Pikachu Platt, Brian Superman-y Platt. I don't know yet, but check that out too. That's at our website /blog. /blog.
There you go.
And with that, I think we're done. So
Thanks, guys.
Bye.